Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and today we're headed down this whole cargo aircraft plane with the C-124, the Globemaster 2, or commonly known as what they call me around my house, Old Shaky. But today with my boldy assistant, I'm going to talk about this cool airplane, but first I'm going to get the cap off that is absolutely cutting off the circulation in my head. So we'll take this is one-handed, Greg. A toss to the Kenny, a little low. I'm not sure. I don't think that was a strike. It was off. But we are talking about the C-124, the Globemaster 2. First flight was in 1949. I'll throw up a plan view of the airplane. Greg can throw that up. It was introduced in 1950. It was retired in 1974. Greg, actually a fairly small build rate at 448. Its top speed was 304 miles an hour, but it cruised at about 230. It was built by Douglas Aircraft in Long Beach, California, which is gone. By the way, that's all gone. Now, an interesting Fred fun fact, and we weren't able to do it, but we tried. This was a long time ago. We're in the Miles hangar at the Air Museum, which is a Korea-Vietnam hangar. We tried to save the control tower from there, the control deck from there, and unfortunately, it was in such bad condition that by the time they got it off, it basically just fell apart. So there wasn't really anything to save, which is kind of sad. But we did, for you Douglas people out there, we did try to save a piece of history, but couldn't do it. Now, this airplane, how do I qualify this with this airplane? I think, and you can argue with me on these mid-50s airplanes, we've done a few of them, that although this had 4360 Wasp engines on it, big radials. And radials are double tough, okay? You can do terrible things to them. This, to me, always reminded me of a C-119 and a C-47 had a night out on the town. And this was the product of that. It's not a pretty airplane. It's about as Bullwinkle-ish as looking as you can get. But it was underpowered. I think it was underpowered. You can argue with me on that. Its big thing was for the Material Air Transport Service. It had a big, nose. Greg can throw up some images, but the door in the front would open, and then it had a hydraulic lift or a lift in the back. So it could be double-decked. It could carry 200 fully armed troops, and it could handle about 68,000 pounds of cargo. So it could handle a lot of stuff, but for all of that, I think it was underpowered. And it wasn't until I think the C-141 came in, which these modern cargo lifters, the C-141 being the most kind of notable step, and then obviously the C-5, but that those aircraft with the jet engines put out enough power that they could be considered true, reliable, heavy lift aircraft. I think this thing in its time was good, and the reason, if you have those 4360s on there and you've ever been around one of those radial engines, imagine 4 of those going full out. This thing, there's a good reason why they called it Old Shaky. It probably rattled the rivets out of this thing. As I said, kind of Bullwinkle looking with a radar thing on the nose. It's not built to be aerodynamic. It's essentially a flying rail car, for lack of a better term. But in the 50s, especially in Korea and what we were doing in the Pacific, these aircraft were critical.
This is a C-124, the largest transport plane in the Air Force. It's no picnic flying a payload over country like this, and when ice fog moves in over those mountains, then you're heading for trouble.
Visibility 1/16 of a mile with ice fog over. Roger, understand the weather. The ice fog up here is pretty bad. Let's make it good the first time, over.
Perform your final cockpit check. Your gear down and lock, over.
Roger, cockpit check completed. Gear down and lock 5-4.
Roger, 51054, your final controller.
This is what the boys in the Arctic call a hairy situation. Our C-124 is flying totally blind through a treacherous ice-fogged mountain range.
They were also, we learned a lot of stuff from the Berlin airlift after that. And one of the things that the United States had to realize that if it got into a fight in Europe, or it got into a fight and did get into a hot war, both in Korea and Vietnam, that most of the reactionary forces were going to come not on ship, they were going to come by air. And so the United States built up this incredibly robust transport system. And you've seen it, with the C-17 now and what we do, but all of that supply chain structure with the United States military, and, I'm going to salute somebody here in a second, but all of that supply chain stuff it literally starts with the C-47 and then, builds up into the C-119 and the other Douglas aircraft, the Berlin airlift, and the United States realizes quite early on, like the late 40s, that if they are now a global superpower, and they're going to have to do two things. They're going to have to move cargo fast, and they're going to have to move a lot of it. And that's where this aircraft came from. It was a derivative of the C-74, the Globemaster from World War II. That's kind of where it came out of. So Greg can throw that up. But I would say that this aircraft is one of those designs of necessity. It's an airplane that the engineer sat down and said, how much cargo can we get in this? How fast can we move it? And will the thing relatively stay in the air? Because we're going to talk about that at the end of the segment. But the folks that I want to salute today are the MATs, or the MAC. The MATs, as I said, the Military Air Transport Service, MAT, or the Military Airlift Command, the MAC. Without those services, you would not see the United States military be as successful as they are. Because remember, they don't just move cargo. They drop paratroopers. They can put paratroopers in. They can do short field stuff. And they operate not just the C-17, which we are going to do a segment on the C-17. I'm transmitting an airplane again, Greg. I'm doing it. But they can operate from short fields, C-130s, which we've done a C-130, but just an incredibly successful aircraft. But it all starts with these very early designs in this C-124. Now, I don't think there would be anybody 1974. No, there's nobody in the military that probably has any experience. The current military that has any experience with these aircraft. They're all retired. But in their day, this must have been a real pain in the airplane to keep going. And so I want to salute all of and moving cargo, whether it's human cargo and paratroopers, or whether it's tanks or whatever you're doing, is not it's not a glamorous job. It is a lousy job in that, you're moving stuff around. Sometimes you're getting shot at. You got to go where the generals tell you to go. So think about, for example, the flight out of Vietnam, all those flights out of Vietnam with those, and let's throw the helicopter guys in there too, the transport guys in there, where they're trying to get people out, and you're trying to get people out under fire. Or it's not popular, but the Afghanistan with all those C-17s basically in a hostile capital that has now fallen to the enemy. You're completely surrounded in Afghanistan, and you're trying to forget the politics of it. Your boss has basically said, go in and fly people out of there, and you've got to get people out of there. Horrific work. So it can go from the relatively mundane in that you're hauling the presidential limo for wherever visit he may be going, to you're going to go into a war zone and people are going to be shooting at you. And so, or Iraq, another example. So all of the folks that have been involved in material airlift, I salute you. And today, I'm going to salute you with, again, I don't see this. This is the first time I've seen this. So if you see the taste of astonishment or the look of astonishment on my face, Havana Libre Sangria. Is this alcoholic? It would be the taste of freedom. Okay, this one is now making me, let's see, 180 calories. It's gone up 10 calories each week, right? You're trying to knock me off. Sugar's 45 grams. HavanaCola.com. This is interesting. It does have a California cache. I always look at that. That'll tell me the age on some of the stuff you're trying to sell me here. This does have a California refund certificate, so it's not that old, but the taste of freedom. So as I said, if you're trying to get out of someplace, this airplane might be your only taste of freedom. Did you like the tie-in on that, Greg? There's just amazing. All right, we're going to give it a shot. I think Havana Sangria may have gone by the wayside. I don't think this is good. I think this is a stale soda, Greg. But 2 sips. So I'm going to taste the freedom again. The freedom to taste something nasty. But I'm not going any further into that because I think that bad boy is gone. I think he has left the building. So we've talked about, I view this, although it had a relatively long service life, I think this is more of a stopgap aircraft. This aircraft, the C-124 and the C-133 were the only heavy lift aircraft in the American inventory up until the C-5A, if you get that. Now, interesting, Greg, if you could put this, I don't know if there's a picture that maybe there might be with this sitting next to a C-5, so you get an idea. But a C-5 is, if you've ever seen one, it is just a cavern. It is amazing that that thing even flies. So once that came in, this thing was retired. It was sent to the various boneyards. I have seen one of these at Pima. When I first saw it about 20 years ago, it was pretty worse for wear. Pima has since cleaned it up, and it actually looks pretty good. I've never been inside one. So that is pretty much how they wrapped up their service. They were good soldiers, and then they got parked. If you go through the history on these, though, when we go back to talking about the fact that they're probably underpowered and pretty ungainly in the air, the number of accidents on this particular type is absolutely staggering. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there were a number of accidents with this particular airframe, and they lost quite a few of them. It's interesting that I don't think, and I could be wrong, correct me in the comment section, that this is one of those aircraft also that made it over into private hands. You know how a lot of cargo aircraft will go into private hands. I think when these were retired, people were like, send them to the boneyard and say goodbye, and you did a good job. But an interesting design that was a workhorse, no question a workhorse, but it has now flown into history. I don't even know if there's anybody like trying to fly one of these on a restoration. I don't think there is. Now, if you, and this is a cool shirt, by the way, this is very cool. If you want, this is a new product. If you're interested in supporting Douglas aircraft, or the Doug, short for the Doug, this is a great shirt. First around the world, Douglas aircraft, obviously. And this is something, I would actually own this, Greg. I may steal one of these at some point. But this is a really cool shirt. Click on the link. Jason will run out and send one to you, maybe not via a Douglas aircraft, but he will get one out to you. If you tripped over us on YouTube or Facebook, we only do long-form military aircraft videos. If you can tolerate that and the hat and the real nasty soda that Greg feeds me, all we do are long-form aircraft videos. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Send us off to other folks that may be interested in this as well. We'll build up a little following of people that like this type of stuff. We enjoy doing it. If you came across us on Facebook, give us a like, give us a comment. Down below, there is a link where you can donate. We can always use a few bucks. It always helps us to do this work, and we would really appreciate that. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.